Spoilers for The Walking Dead Telltale Season 1 and minor spoilers for Red Dead 2, The Last of Us Part 1 and Amori. Throughout my life there's been many games that I have played more than once. It's often one of the main features that I consider before purchasing a new game. After all, you want the most out of your money. The more hours of gameplay you get, the more you're able to stretch out your money because, guys, a bit of girl logic here, if a game costs £70, because that's how much they do cost now, if I can manage to get 70 hours of gameplay out of it, if you divide the price by the hours, it's only £1 per hour. In comparison to the value you get from a cinema ticket, that is an amazing price. Replay value can be found in many different forms, from New Game Plus, new characters, procedural generated content or speedrunning. There are a lot of things that go into making replayability a prime feature. A lot of people value this when looking for a game to purchase, and that's understandable, you want the best value for your money. This video essay isn't to say that replayability isn't important. In fact, it can be extremely valuable and can give players a lot more enjoyment, when done correctly. The key part there is correctly. I want to make the argument that sometimes it can actually damage a game overall and make a less enjoyable experience when it's the main feature that the game devs prioritise. Depending on who you ask depends on what games they think of when they think of replayability. A lot of people think of Resident Evil 7, which is completely understandable, unless you're me, who cries whenever anything remotely scary comes onto the screen. This isn't the same for some of my friends though, who have got the platinum on the game and will very happily spend hours doing certain challenges in the game. My challenge is loading it up and not pausing every 2 seconds. For me, my personal favourite replayable games are Gitaroo Man, Stardew Valley, The Last of Us and Baldur's Gate 3. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that all these games are extremely different from one another. Before getting into critiquing replayability, by looking at my personal favourites to replay, we may get a better idea of why some games are more replayable than others.
I won't fight you, Kira! The real enemy is going!
A classic rhythm game from the PS2, and quite honestly, it's the only reason I keep this old thing plugged in. Aim of the game? Well, if you're anything like me, it's trying to complete level 2 on Master Mode after all these years. But really though, it's about trying to beat your high score whilst enjoying some of the best tunes in a video game of all time ever made, no questions about it. Many of these songs I listen to whilst I'm typing out these scripts. Seriously, it just makes you feel like a badass. And I wish I could play the song for you in full here, but I don't think the YouTube gods would be overly pleased. What makes this game replayable are the short levels that are music based. Look at games such as Guitar Hero, Just Dance, Beat Saber, and even the Persona rhythm games. They are all technically infinitely replayable because the overall premise isn't focused on a narrative. Instead, it's on short bursts of fun that you could really do forever. The music side of all these games mentioned before are also a major factor into making them replayable. A good song never dies, it just reminds you of where you were the first time you heard it. In hand, this then increases the replayability since it can give people feelings of nostalgia, joy, hell even sadness, and all of that is without even analysing the gameplay. Please, 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 please bring it to the PS5, Sony. Please, 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 please. Think of the rain. Now think of a hot chocolate with maybe some popcorn next to a lovely cozy fire. That's why I keep coming back to Stardew Valley over and over again. I am unashamed to admit that I have never ever gotten to year 3 where Grandpa comes back, but I know so much about the game I could write an essay on it. It's that cozy feeling that makes this so enjoyable to play over and over again, whilst never actually completing the game. But there is no real way to complete it either, it is purely just here for the experience. For this title, the replayability comes from the calming atmosphere and the extremely well written NPCs, with Amazing Ape still giving us new content to this day. Free new content, that is. I think this will be around for a while and known as one of the greatest indie games that you could play forever.
Now, the girl. Is she alive?
What girl? I don't know no girl.
Fuck! Focus right here, right here. I'll pop your goddamn knee off. The girl.
She's alive. She's David's newest pet.
A story game which has indented itself into the walls of the gaming industry, forcing its way into the hall of the greatest games ever made. From 2013, yes, 2013, with Joel and Ellie's faces, anyone in the gaming industry will be able to recognise. I even forced my stepmom to play it once. Safe to say, there was a lot of this. I came back to this one for the characters, the growth of the protagonist, and the absolutely gut-wrenching scenes where all of a sudden I'm not a fully grown man who kills people to find out where his adoptive daughter is. No, I'm a scared little girl constantly pressing R3 to listen to where the clickers are whilst I'm cowering in the corner. Despite my earlier comments about horror games not being replayable for me because I'm the biggest wimp to ever pick up a controller, I am willing to put myself through it to see more of Joel, more of Tommy and Ellie. This is just how good the story is here. So the replayability for me comes from the narrative. I don't think I've ever managed to sit through Sarah's death without crying, and I know I'm not alone in that.
Listen to me, I know this hurts, baby. You're gonna be okay, baby, stay with me. Alright, I'm gonna pick you up. I know, baby, I know it hurts. Come on, baby, please. I know, baby, I know. Sarah.
Naughty Dog has hands down told one of the most memorable and brilliant stories in gaming history, even if they have squeezed every penny out of Joel's little arse. We'll come back to this later. Now, where to even start? I have only just got Baldur's Gate 3. So soon to just that I haven't completed Act 1 yet, but I am already chatting my boyfriend's ear off about my next character I'm going to roleplay as in my next playthrough. I don't have to say how amazing Baldur's Gate is. It won Game of the Year, people. Just go play it for yourself, and you will also ruin any other game ever made because nothing will ever compare. The thing that already has me so excited to start another playthrough is the openness of it. Not in the sense of Red Dead Redemption though. The story beats there feel the same, and the slow mundane tasks of shopping one item at a time off the shelves isn't my cup of tea. Baldur's Gate though, so many of the main plot points change drastically depending on your choices. You can play the whole game being completely alone and killing off all of your allies, or you can be a friend of the world, a pacifist the whole time, and the game actually acknowledges this. You can play this again and again and you will discover something new every single time. Guaranteed. My fear is that game developers or the big devs at the top don't realise why people want to replay games though. There's certain things that are implemented to try and make people want to replay, which I'm going to argue here doesn't necessarily work.
You found one of them. One of the miniature Stanley figurines. Remember, no reward for collecting all of these, only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done.
Oh, the dreaded collectables. When I hear collectables, my first thought is the Riddler trophies from the Batman Arkham series.
You solved it? Ah, but this is merely check, detective. Soon I will be mating you. Wait.
240 in Arkham Asylum, 440 in Arkham City with the Catwoman DLC, and 243 in Arkham Knight. 923 in total of these little green pieces of shit. Whoever it was that decided this many was necessary needs to get a reality check because I do not have the time for this shit, especially in Arkham Knight. Look at the size of this stupid map. This is not the worst offender though. Missable collectables, I hope you burn. Going back to one of my actual favourites to replay, The Last of Us, and you will notice something. I do not have the trophy for getting all the collectables. You know why? Because having the YouTube video on your phone whilst playing the game on your screen ruins the whole experience. Naughty Dog, you are insane if you think I'm going to restart the entire game because I missed this piece of paper in the sewer. Nuh-uh, not happening. Go away. Checking off boxes in a little tick box is not the reason I play games. I hope it's not the reason anyone plays games. If you do somehow get a buzz from it, then I get it. Truly, I kinda do. I used to be a trophy hunter with my amazing and impressive collection of 26 platinums and an insane amount of time in Little Big Planet 3 to prove it. That doesn't mean it inherently makes a game better to replay though. Many times, like I mentioned before, you end up having a YouTube video open on the side and pausing it every 5 seconds to retrace the person's exact steps. I have my fair share of experience in this with the aforementioned platinum in Batman Arkham City and Asylum. Yes, I'm the biggest hypocrite to walk the planet, but I would never dream of doing it now as an adult or a full-time job. I just don't think they add any value. It's just clear it's something to drag the game out. Yes, the Riddler trophies add a little bit of more gameplay, but the same effect could have been completed with 50 of them, not 900 and something. When they're done like this, I don't think they bring any actual joy other than seeing a percentage go up. Don't get me wrong though, some games do it right. I like to think of Life is Strange Remastered as an alright example of this. You can select what chapter of the game you want to go back to, there's no need to replay the entire section for this. There's also games such as Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom where there's a bunch of collectibles, but you actually get something from them, and by no means do you need to do them all. I think finding the Korak seeds is actually really cute, the little it makes us really satisfying. Not once though is it pushed that you need all of them. There isn't a countdown until you collect all of them. There's not a trophy or a checkbox that makes it so that if you are just trying to get through them one by one, it eventually says 100%. It's just not needed. Despite me and many other people feeling that the vast majority of collectibles are done wrong, the first instance of a collectible thing can be found in 1980 Atari 2600 title Adventure. It all started with a grey pixel which then allowed the player to enter an Easter egg room containing text created by Robinette? Yeah. For the next 10ish years, similar types of collectibles were largely missing until Nintendo ruined it all with the release of Super Mario 64.
Me, Mario!
This major hit game became an important stepping stone on the road to modern day collectibles. The Star. Ooh.
Here we go!
Whilst previous games just had coins and mushrooms, Mario 64 was the first to introduce the Star, changing the industry forever. Whilst the stars weren't exactly the functionless collectibles we are all familiar with now, their existence in the game marked the arrival of a new type of player, the completionist. 2 years later, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time allowed players to track down 100 golden scuttlers, which didn't affect the main outline of the story at all. Here I was complimenting Nintendo for doing collectibles right when they actually doomed us all. From there on, as you can imagine, collectibles started to become a main feature in some major games. Halo, Assassin's Creed, the LEGO games, they all started to adapt to have some sort of collectible. And now you can hardly look at a pause menu without there being some sort of progress bar for a collectible you couldn't give two shits about. The Stanley Parable ones though, I must have.
Okay, I'm going back to the name of these little Stanley figurines, and now I'm torn between Stanlerines and Figlies.
When games overdo collectibles, they can actively harm the experience, and replayability suffers as a result. At best, they frustrate the players with constant reminders that they haven't checked every box, like the endless taunts from the Arkham Knight's Riddler. The Riddler's still out there. I must save Gotham. The Knight is my friend. Can't believe I just did that. At worst, they completely break immersion. Why is Ezio, one of the world's greatest assassins, wasting hours running around collecting feathers? The sheer quantity of these make them feel pointless, and when they're disconnected from the game's core experience, they discourage players from coming back. These frustrations stick too. Even if the story is great, the idea of replaying a game to grab pointless extras can turn what should be a fun return into a chore. Games don't need to make every player a completionist. Replayability isn't about ticking boxes, it's about wanting to relive an experience, not a slog through maps to fill a progress bar. Anyone who's seen my videos before knows that I like Valorant and that I've spent a bit too much money on it than what I'd like to admit. Do I regret it? Maybe, but that's not why I'm here, and it's not what we're talking about. I'm here to talk about the insane amount of multiplayer games which, for some reason, the major game developers think that we need. Don't get me wrong, I love multiplayer games like Valorant or Dead by Daylight. There's a very special place in my heart for the amount of jokes and memorable moments that has happened in these games. I found you. Hello. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to do that either. I'm trying to get on the jet. But none of these are new multiplayer games. When a new multiplayer game comes out, it's not like they're asking a small amount from you. They are possibly one of the most time-consuming things to invest yourself in, and this is coming from the girl who recommended you Baldur's Gate 3 a few minutes ago. When a new Call of Duty comes out, guess who is the first in line to get it? Not fucking me. I'm all the way at the back of the line, sipping on boba tea and thinking about Gale of Waterdeep because I had my good fill of COD with Black Ops 3 when I got that for free with PS Plus.
I love you.
Or World War II with the zombies, which I started thanks to my dad. I cannot keep starting from scratch for the same game over and over again. Most of the time, these multiplayer games' progress aren't based on skill. It's a leveling based system where you start from the bottom over and over again with no cosmetics, no unique guns or add-ons, and you just have to accept the fact that you start with nothing. In the exact same game. I recently bought Black Ops 6 to play with my friends, who all got it for free on Xbox Game Pass. Thanks a lot for that, Sony, and I must say, I regretted it instantly. It's the same with Black Ops 3, which I mentioned earlier, I got for free back in the day. Half the maps are reused. Why, oh why, am I playing on Nuketown again? All my guns have no attachments, all the cosmetics I've earned are gone, and to get them back, I've got to do the exact same thing again. What part of this is fun or entertaining? Believe it or not, Activision, I don't want to do this for the 5th time running, and I'm not even a major COD fan. I'm very casual about this. This leads to player burnout, and whilst companies may think that they're making the players stay for longer by giving them more things to do, they're putting innovation on the back burner. The most unique thing Activision has done recently is add Squid Games to Black Ops with the most boring game mode I've ever played in my life, which has actually made the player count drop drastically. And the Reddit fans start these long new threads about how shit it is. Everything isn't all bad in the realm of multiplayer. Love it or hate it, mostly hate for me, Fortnite is an excellent example of this done correctly. They have unfortunately nailed cross progression, and you keep every cosmetic you've ever earned, no matter where you play. You don't start from zero, and there's no reason for Epic Games to make a Fortnite 2, and they're very aware of this. All it would do is piss off their loyal fans that everything they've done is down the gutter. They actually rely on innovation and pretty fantastic marketing to keep players interested. I can't get the Miku off my TikTok For You page, please. I don't play this game. Go away, Miku! You can tell they actually care about the 7-year-olds using their parents' credit cards. Valorant 2 is a skill-focused game where it relies on teamwork rather than grinding. Any of the base characters you get, you can play up to Grandmaster because none of them give you a disadvantage. And they give you at least one character from each section, meaning that no matter what your team needs, support, duelist, etc., you can fill it instantly. The guns are the same no matter how much money you've thrown into the Dream Wings bundle. A headshot is a headshot and the damage is consistent. You're on the same level as someone who has thrown 500 hours into the game, even if you're booting it up for the first time. Not literally though. They will probably be better just down to experience. But that's experience, that's something different. The reality is, we don't need another copy and paste multiplayer game that offers the same things as the last one. Developers need to focus on something unique. Nintendo can, look what they've done recently with Mario Wonder and the critical acclaim that they've already received. Multiplayer games can offer endless replayability, but only if they respect the player's time, reward their efforts meaningfully, and dare to innovate. Until developers embrace that, we'll keep seeing the same copy and paste grind, and players will eventually stop lining up. Sometimes when developers think that they can make more money from a specific game or game franchise, they simply publish it again. Okay, there's a bit more to it than that, but some of them can genuinely feel like that. Can you honestly tell me you can see a major difference between this and this? I mean, there's a few darker shadows here, and Ellie looks a bit less shiny here, but let's be honest though, definitely not enough of a difference to purchase the game all over again. The Last of Us holds a very strange record within the industry for being the most remastered or remade game franchise ever. There are more remasters than actual original content. The original one came out in 2013 for the PS3, again in 2014 for the PS4, but then once again in 2022 for the PS5, and Part 2 has come out in 2020 and 2024. Now, for the keen eyes amongst you, one of the games I listed as being replayable was The Last of Us, so why am I complaining? Because games shouldn't have to be purchased again to play them again. The same disc you bought the first time should be the same disc you put back into your console the second time. Naughty Dog, as much as I love your games, the Last of Us franchise is your prime cash cow. Stop milking it dry and actually make something new rather than adding more blades of grass in a field, for God's sake. The replayability of a game should be intrinsic. A game with strong mechanics, engaging storylines, and meaningful choices shouldn't need a technical upgrade to remain enjoyable. Let me repeat. The Last of Us doesn't need technical updates to remain enjoyable. The PS3 version still got 10 out of 10 ratings despite Joel's nose not having each individual pore drawn onto it. You want evidence of this? The original Portal game, masterpiece, 10 out of 10, people still talk about it to this day, yet not a single remake in sight. The actual quality of the game's puzzles are timeless because they challenge creativity and don't rely on hyper-realistic graphics to shine. The Simpsons Hit and Run, just as enjoyable as it was when I was a pre-fetus. The gags are hilarious and the actual driving missions are fun to try over and over again to get your personal best. I suppose now might be a good time to bring nostalgia into the playing field. In a world where everything apparently must be viewed through nostalgia glasses, looking at you TikTok, some games are better left untouched. The original Minecraft version with its peak music, Wii Sports Resorts, Club Penguin, for many players nostalgia overruns any improvements that a remake or remaster can offer. It holds a charm that can sometimes be ruined entirely when given the remastered effect, aka making it as realistic as possible. The charm of these games comes from the era that they represent. It's the same with anything, but can be especially true for video games. Trying to modernise them risks losing the magic that they captured in the first place. Resident Evil 4 Remake, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Spyro Reignited, Persona 3 Reload, Crash Insane Trilogy, Diablo 2, Demon's Souls, Final Fantasy VII, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and many more. The great remasters or remakes of modern day gaming. Whilst it's easy to look at all the lazy cash grabs, there are a few fantastic exceptions that do work especially well. Resident Evil 2 Remake, for example, is now seen as the true way to experience this game. With the original coming out in 1998, the remake coming out in 2019, it goes without saying that there are bound to be some major technological advances. Unlike Naughty Dog, Capcom has taken advantage of this and given gamers the now ideal way to experience the game. The entire game has been enhanced and reimagined in a way that does nothing but elevate the experience. The visuals, controls and camera angles were all updated to meet modern expectations, whilst the core mechanics and storyline were true to the original. This is the gold standard for remakes. Good job, 5 stars. Taking the last 2 decades worth of technological advances and putting a nice little bow on them whilst remaining faithful to the original. Now, let's contrast this with The Last of Us Part 1, a game I've repetitively criticised in this section. What's the real difference? Look at the two side by side. Whilst Resident Evil 2 Remakes underwent a total overhaul, The Last of Us essentially had its graphics polished. Sure, Ellie's face looks more detailed and the shadows are darker, but is that enough to justify re-releasing a game barely a decade old? It doesn't add anything new or innovative to the experience. Great remakes succeed when they rebuild, reimagine and respect the legacy of the original. They offer new and returning players something fresh, an experience that justifies their existence.
Whoa, that was so surreal.
Sometimes there are games where the desire to play simply doesn't happen again. Once you've seen the credits roll, that's it, you're satisfied and you don't have the need to ever come back to it. Sometimes you might, but it will never hit as hard as it did the first time. Some games are so emotionally powerful, narratively satisfying and uniquely crafted that the one playthrough feels like enough. The experience itself is unforgettable, making the need to come back minimum. You could try to make the argument here that any actually good game will always leave the player feeling like this, and if it doesn't, then there's something inherently wrong with the game overall. But let's split up the sections of why a game might make you want to only play it once. Games with heavy emotional weight can leave the player feeling influenced or emotionally fulfilled, that making a second playthrough feels less impactful. Games like Amori, Firewatch, Life is Strange, hell, even Red Dead Redemption can have this effect. Once you know what's going to happen, the plot twists in the story don't hit as hard, and trying to relight that spark can prove to be meaningless. I will always remember my playthrough as Amori, getting to Black Space and feeling the need to go through every single door. I wanted every inch of detail that Omocat had to offer regarding the story. When it eventually ended, where I told the truth to everyone, in case anyone's curious, that was it. Sunny's adventure was done, and I never felt the need to go back. The 15-hour-ish experience wrapped everything up, and I haven't felt the need to go and experience it all again. By no means, though, is this anything to do with a bad part of the game. Sunny, Kel, Aubrey, Hero, all of them are exceptionally well-written characters, to the point where when I'm listening to the soundtrack, I put a character to the sound. By your side is Mari, obviously. Spaces in between sound like the separation between all the characters. The pauses give the impression there's something missing. You Must Carry On sounds like Kel trying to support Hero despite his childish ways still shining through. And my personal favourite, It Means Everything, is just Aubrey's pure expression of anger and regret. I adore everything about this game, but I've played it once, and I'm pretty confident to say that's all I'm ever going to do. When you love a game, it's not quite like a movie. A movie is about 2 hours long. You can watch it as much as you like whilst doing other things perhaps, but a game, you have to give it your full attention, and most of the time, this attention is for a very long time. 50.5 hours to complete Red Dead Redemption 2 from start to finish, and I must say, it has a very boring prologue that goes on for far too long in the snow, like, Arthur, can you walk a little bit faster please? Why can't I skip this? The pure length of them can discourage replay because no one wants to go through Death Stranding's walking simulator section again. This isn't inherently a bad thing though. The time that you originally invest into a game makes the experience. It makes the journey. Having the player feeling a bit drained makes the resolution feel all more satisfying when you eventually get to it, but it makes sacrifice replayability by making sections that do drain the player's energy. Again though, it's not a bad thing. By forcing me to walk slowly through what remains of Edith Finch, it means that I'm actually absorbing what it is you're telling me. There's not 1,000 flashing lights to make sure that this part of my brain thinks I'm having a rave. It's actually impactful. Or by making it so that I can't skip the prologue in Red Dead Redemption, it ensures that the first time you played it, when it was actually interesting and you were properly introduced to the characters and the dynamic between them, already knowing all this information though means that yes, it's a drag on second playthroughs. Once again though, that's not a bad thing. There are so many games out there where the story is the same no matter what you do or who you talk to. Some of the top ones that come to mind are Telltale games. Yes, they're advertised as the decisions you make will affect the story and characters around you. But no matter what you do, the saddest scene in history of gaming still happens.
And Clem. Keep that hair short.
I will. I'll cut it myself. Sometimes when you're first told that a game is linear, it's automatically presumed that it's a bad thing. Well, it's definitely not. When game devs make their games linear, it means that they can tell the specific story that they actually want to tell. If every single game tried to account for every single action that a player may want to take, it can lead to a mess of a storyline. By choosing a more linear path, every single part of the narrative is handcrafted to deliver the exact message that the game dev wants. My most memorable games are the linear ones because they hit the hardest most of the time. It also makes for a community that thrives from having the same experience. The game doesn't have to be infinite to keep people talking about it. With limited choices to make and a fixed progression that happens the same way every single time, replayability drops but the quality doesn't. When you unnecessarily add things, that's when the quality can drop. Side quests refer to quests that players can complete that are not mandatory to progress or complete the story. The overall idea of them is that they are something additional the player can do if they want to. Ideally, they should add depth to the game world, providing interesting challenges or other meaningful rewards. However, not all side quests are created equal, and some can feel like unnecessary padding rather than valuable additions. I think we all know the joke of the follow side quests, where you talk to a person and you're told to just follow them, and then they walk slower than what you physically can. Even in games where a dedicated walking feature exists, like GTA, the NPCs still manage to be slower than you, turning the quest into an incredibly tedious and frustrating experience. It's the epitome of an unengaging task that adds nothing to the enjoyment of the game. Fetch quests are another very common example. Go here, grab this, come straight back. They're practically everywhere. Despite their reputation, I sometimes don't mind them. If the world is interesting enough to explore and you can discover new things along the way, then they can actually be enjoyable. It's when the game transparently uses them as a filler to slow down your progress to the next major mission, that's when they become frustrating. To prove I'm not completely biased towards side quests being awful though, here is a personal list of my favourites. Number 1, Alexander's side quests in Elden Ring. Who couldn't love him? Number 2, From the Ground Up, which is building a town in Breath of the Wild. Heck, the whole game is a side quest. You could just head straight to Ganon's door and kick it down if you wanted to. Number 3, the Persona 5 Royal Confidants. Any of them. It's technically not required to complete the game, so it counts, okay? An excellent example of a game doing fetch quests well is Red Dead Redemption 2. They are all optional, they develop the characters, and to my knowledge, none of them pin a location on the map and simply tell you to go there and back. Instead, they involve finding items organically, like the harmonica for Sadie, which develops her character and offers a meaningful connection, rather than feeling like a chore. It shows that when effort is put into them, side quests can enhance the player experience, instead of feeling like meaningless padding. Sometimes side quests can be the highlight of the whole game. Look at Borderlands 2, shoot me in the face, fella.
Knock, knock! Who's there? Shoot me in the face! End of joke! I'm gonna sing a song! Shoot me at the end of it! Da-da-da-da-da-da! Bong! I noticed you haven't shot me in the face! Curious as to why!
He has edit space around him. He's that influential. I probably just unlocked many people's hidden memories with that one. There's many side quests that are disguised to be a good thing though that simply aren't. The delicate flower in Hollow Knight being one of my personal most hated, since I do not have the patience to ever do it again. Going from one side of the map to the other without getting hit, teleporting, or resting at benches wasn't fun. It required a lot of trial and error and didn't really provide anything to the story in comparison to what it requires from the player. Nor do you get anything out of it. Hollow Knight, I love you. I'm so sorry, I just don't like this quest, okay? Ultimately, side quests should enrich the game, providing additional layers of narrative and gameplay. When well designed, they can make a game world feel alive and rewarding. When poorly executed, they become nothing more than unnecessary hurdles that test the player's patience rather than their skills. As great as it is to get the most out of your money when purchasing a game, it doesn't mean that it should come at the expense of a truly great experience. Not every game needs to be endlessly replayable to be meaningful or memorable. Some of the best games ever made can make a lasting impact through their storytelling, atmosphere, and emotional depth. Things that can't always be replicated by simply playing through them again. Replayability is a fantastic feature when it's implemented well, but it shouldn't be a requirement for every title. Sometimes a game's value lies in the ability to deliver a singular, unforgettable journey, one that sticks with you long after the credits roll. Pushing for excessive content or artificial longevity can dilute the core experience, and in some cases even undermine what makes a game special in the first place. I hope I provided enough examples, both good and bad, to support my argument and encourage any aspiring game developers watching to prioritise quality over quantity. A well-crafted, focused experience will always stand the test of time far better than a bloated, repetitive one. But of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you think developers should always design with replayability in mind, or is it okay for a game to simply be a one and done experience? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe because I'm really trying here, guys. Please, I really appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll hopefully talk to you soon. Bye!